Can you tell us how the discussions over child welfare are going at the moment? How are those going?
Well, thanks for the question. The parties are still at the table. Of course, we have Murray Sinclair helping to facilitate the conversation. And there's a deep desire by all parties to settle this, move on with the compensation for children that have been harmed, and also reform the system in a way that ends discrimination.
Is there a deadline that you set for the talks, or that the parties have set for the talks?
Well, I think everybody wants to get this accomplished as soon as possible. We've been working towards the end of December, but we'll see. Obviously, I'm flexible in terms of wanting to make sure that we don't cut off productive conversations. And my goal is to make sure that the parties have everything they need in order to continue those conversations.
And what's the tone of those conversations?
I think fairly positive. I think the parties know that Canada is committed to both aspects of the reform, both the compensation and the long-term reforms. And I think there's optimism in the room that we are going to arrive at a solution with fair compensation and with sufficient support and structure to make sure that children have better outcomes in the future.
And what is going to be your message are you going to be attending the AFN meeting this week?
I am, yes, I am today actually, virtually, okay. Unfortunately, but...
Yeah, and what's the message going to be to that? What's the message you're hoping to deliver?
Well, my message is to AFN, well, first of all, I'm there to listen, obviously, but in my remarks, I'll be talking about the need to continue to work on the relationship that has been difficult between Indigenous people and Canadians, and the government of Canada in particular, since we've arrived. And so for me, this is about restoring a relationship and restoring that commitment to coming together, even when we have discussion points that are difficult.
About the compensation, are the odds looking better now than they were 4 weeks ago?
I can't really speak about the conversations in detail. Obviously, everybody is still working really hard at the table. It would be disrespectful for me to
But
talk.
do you feel any progress at all?
Oh, I think so, yes. I think we've had a lot of progress, and I think very sincere efforts by everybody to make sure that we keep the goal in mind, which is to compensate people who have been harmed and to make sure that discrimination and that harm doesn't continue into the future.
That's the last question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, what do you think about Wagathal's point of privilege yesterday? Do you think that she's on some level ground there, saying that you're changing the rules of the game here?
It's time to move on. Get vaccinated. That's what Canadians expect to have happen. The number of exemptions are incredibly limited. As has been stated by the Ontario Medical Officer of Health, whose jurisdiction we're in right now, about 1 in 100,000 people. So right now there are 4 Conservative members, 4 against 1 in 100,000 when you got 119 people. This doesn't add up. And it doesn't send a good message to the country. We all have to get vaccinated. We got to get this pandemic over.
So you know that there are 4 with medical exemptions now.
Well, I don't know. There are 4 who are not coming. There are 2 who are talking about their medical exemptions and 4 who are not appearing. We can still not get a straight answer from the Conservatives. I've said from the beginning that I believe there were more than 1. It certainly appears that is the case. And it stretches all credibility to believe that those are legitimate medical exemptions. And I'm just disappointed that we continue to discuss this and continue to debate this. I think the country understands we have now 90% of adult Canadians who've had their first injection, over 86% with their second. And I think that everybody has an expectation that this place, which is supposed to lead the country, will be doing that, and that folks will be getting their vaccinations and keeping people around them safe.
Monsieur O'Toole dit que c'est à eux de s'expliquer. Est-ce que vous croyez que leur chef devrait avoir quelque chose à dire sur le sujet?
Je pense que c'est tellement important que le Aaron O'Toole va dire clairement combien de députés avoir des exemptions médicales. Mais pour moi, c'est clair que ici, il y a 4 personnes avec une exemption. Ce n'est pas logique, ça. Le chiffre n'était pas logique, pas du tout. Alors, c'est le temps de finir le débat sur la vaccination. C'est le travail de la Chambre de communes d'être un leader pour le pays. Et il y a une attente que toutes les personnes ici sont vaccinées. Alors, c'est le temps d'être vacciné.
Ce sont des députés, des élus. Ça dit quoi de leur honnêteté, ça, que leurs exemptions médicales ne soient pas acceptables pour la nouvelle règle?
Oui, c'est pas les nouvelles règles de Parlement. Ça, c'est les règles de chef de santé pour l'Ontario. Ça, c'est les règles généralement pour toutes les personnes partout au pays. Alors, il n'y a pas une règle spéciale pour les députés conservateurs. Alors, c'est clair, les types d'exemptions médicales qui sont acceptables sont clairs, et c'est clair que ce n'est pas possible qu'il y a 4 députés conservateurs avec une exemption comme ça.
But my question was about their honesty. They're elected members of parliament, and yet they have these exemptions that seem to be not real or fake or whatever adjective you want to give them.
Look, I deliberately am not going to entertain whether or not a member is or is not honest. All I can tell you is that we have very clear rules that are not our rules. They are rules that come from public health authorities around what constitutes a legitimate medical exemption. And we have an expectation, like all workplaces across the country, that exemptions will be for legitimate reasons, the reasons that are outlined by officers of medical health. And it is up to members, just as it is up to employees who are in workplaces with vaccine rules, to meet those conditions.
Do you think the Board of Internal Economy made a mistake by not being specific enough when the rule was first passed, by initially saying you need to have a medical exemption that passes the Ontario government's rules that have been set out? Do you think it was a mistake to not go that specific from day one?
I think that I've been consistently disappointed with the extent to which the Conservatives seem to try to evade very basic public health directives. I had a hope at the beginning, and I think I expressed this all along, that we would come to this place and that reason would prevail. I have to say that in other discussions on COVID, I was very encouraged by the way in which the Conservatives worked with us to find common ground. And so I was hopeful that they were going to find a way to deal with their internal issues and that reasonable latitude could be afforded to get to that point. Unfortunately, as we are now in December, as this has been dragging out for months as an issue, that expectation of reasonableness was misplaced.
On committees, when are we going to see the rest of the committees up and running?
All committees will be in place by December 17th. As I would have indicated to you, to the media, that we were going to do that before the holidays. That will happen. So those committees will be being populated very shortly, certainly before the 17th, with chairs and vice chairs in place.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, folks.
I don't know if you know this, but while you were inside, I think that the AFN announced that the trip to Rome has been put off because of COVID, I guess. So I don't know if you've been...
I just found that out, but I mean, look, these are people that their safety is the #1 priority, and they'll have plenty of opportunity, I suspect, to make those representations to the Holy Father. But their safety is the #1 priority, and we are prepared at Indigenous Services Canada to give them wraparound supports as well. But obviously, it's unfortunate because I think the Holy Father needs to hear it from advocates directly, and that occasion won't present itself until later. But we're there to help and support.
Are you concerned about how this is getting pushed back and what that's going to do to reconciliation in the country? Reconciliation has many branches to it, and so this is one of them. Getting a full and complete apology from the Holy Father is very important on the path to healing and closure. But this is only one element of it, and that delegation was important in and of itself. It has a very important number of voices from Indigenous leadership across the country. So it's sad that they're not going, but their health and safety is obviously the #1 priority, given that a number of them are sort of advanced aged as well. And you mentioned giving some support to the delegation. So what is the government doing when it comes to helping support either setting up this meeting or trying to set up this apology? What's the role of the government?
Played very much a background role. They've led it, and rightly so. But obviously with delegations of these that are representing in part people who live in Canada, we've reached out and offered all the supports that they would need. But obviously, with the fear of Omicron, that's a legitimate concern, and their safety is a priority.
Alors, vous espérez que ça soit remis à quand? Quand est-ce que vous espérez?
J'ai aucun choix dans la prise de décision, avec cause. Mais évidemment, quand ça sera...
Idéalement?
Idéalement, il faudrait poser la question aux délégués eux-mêmes. Mais évidemment, leur sécurité, leur santé, c'est la priorité numéro 1.
Puis vous ne croyez pas que c'est un recul malheureux, étant donné qu'on y était presque? Là, que
je pense que pour les délégués en tant que tels, ils vont être déçus, mais on veut qu'ils restent en santé, puis avec avec la menace du variant Omicron, c'est l'objet principal, la raison pour le délai. Donc, je me fie à eux.
Merci.
Merci. Bonne journée.
But when you read it on the Prime Minister's website, on the PMO website, it's exactly the same in terms of wording. So for a layperson, how do you figure out what the difference will be in terms of what you'll be studying?
Well, I think the fact that they're using the same names is intended to say is that the lenses through which domestic policy initiatives are going to be looked at will be identical, which is we will be thinking about the environmental impacts and we will be thinking about the economic opportunities that addressing a range of these issues can have on a go-forward basis. And so the lenses are going to be exactly the same. But of course, there is far more from a domestic perspective than one committee can handle. So there will be effectively two committees evaluating domestic policy issues and bringing those forward with recommendations to Cabinet. At the end of the day, all of these initiatives go to Cabinet. And Cabinet is ultimately the entire group that actually makes the decisions with respect to what goes forward and what doesn't. Okay?
Just a small question, sorry. Quebec plans to invest perhaps $1 billion in hydrogen and biocarburants. I just want l'hydrogène et les biocarburants. Comme ça. Je me demande si vous avez quelque chose à dire là-dessus. Si le fédéral fera aussi partie d'une stratégie hydrogène et biocarburants du Québec.
Oui, les deux sont très importants, pas seulement au Québec, mais partout le pays. Mais nous avons mis en place une fond de carburant propre. Et bien sûr, c'est l'hydrogène et les biocarburants. Mais je crois que, comme j'ai dit déjà, c'est très important pour le gouvernement fédéral et le gouvernement du Québec et les autres provinces et territoires de travailler ensemble, d'assurer que la manière dans laquelle nous travaillons, c'est efficace et que les mesures avancent notre cible, qui sont presque les mêmes, comme très, très vite et dans une manière qui est très, comme j'ai dit, très efficace. Mais bien sûr, l'hydrogène et les biocarburants sont les choses, les enjeux qui sont très importants pour le gouvernement fédéral. Merci.